Right. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar in our Wellness Wednesday series. Each Wednesday, we'll be chatting about a different health topic and really hope you can join us for the whole series. My name is Kelly Tomlinson. I am the health educator with the Norwalk Health Department, and I will be presenting today on motivation and some behavior change things. I want to quickly thank my partners in this program, Julia Green with the Health Department and Cindy Leahy and Vicki Otis with the Norwalk Public Library. So today's webinar is all about mastering your motivation, a look into how we can gain and keep our motivation over time while working on changing behavior, setting goals, and accomplishing tasks. So a little bit about what we will cover this afternoon, starting with behavior change, looking at if we are ready to make a change, set a goal, set an intention, and kind of how that looks like. We will then dive into understanding what motivates us, what drives our motivation, how can we get started, get motivated, and then sustain that motivation over time. And then I did want to highlight a couple of resources. So if you are interested in kind of learning more and continuing this work, there's some resources to get you started. All right, so beginning with behavior change. So change is really a natural part of life, and it's inevitable. So whether those changes that you have are big or they're small, you deem them as a positive change or a negative, change is really bound to happen. And it can come in many forms. It can come in the form of change in behavior. So if you want to add something new to your life, if you want to change up a behavior with something new and replace it, or if you want to get rid of a behavior altogether. Behavior change could also look at wanting to accomplish something, setting a new goal, setting an intention for yourself. No matter what it is, there is change that will happen. I want you to take a few moments and think about something in your life you've been wanting to change. Give you a few seconds to think about that and kind of whatever that looks like for you. But really understanding the process of change can help you navigate that process more effectively and help you succeed. And so as we go through this presentation, just really kind of have that change or goal you have in mind as we start to kind of go through these steps and these processes. So before we get into the different components of behavior change, I really want to highlight what I think, in my opinion, is a very important piece of this, and that is that change takes time. Change is often a gradual process, which at times can become very discouraging, especially if you aren't seeing results at the times that you want it to. But even small changes, they're still changes. And so being kind to yourself is really that big takeaway. You're trying something new, or you're getting kind of back on that horse to try again, and that's incredibly brave. So please treat yourself kindly and try to harness something positive about the experience that you're going through, setbacks and all, which we'll definitely go over. In addition to being kind, I want you to be curious. So entering into this problem or a plateau that you're experiencing with behavior change, entering into this with curiosity can help you gain answers to questions that you didn't know you had. It can help you figure out really why this goal matters to you and why this is something that you want to change. Figuring out how you can make it work, why something isn't working. But going into this with curiosity can help you learn more about yourself and grow from this experience. And the last piece of this is being resilient. Again, behavior change takes time. This journey might not be the easiest, but it is possible, which is why I put this butterfly. I think the butterfly is just such a great metaphor for change. They don't just wake up one day and become a butterfly. It takes a lot of patience. It takes growth, and this growth is a process. So just keeping that in mind. So now that everyone on this webinar together is in agreement that we will be kind to ourselves and we'll recognize, that we need patience, we can kind of start to understand this readiness to make that change. So there are three main elements of change that will help determine success. There's readiness to change, which you see on the screen of how do you have the resources and the knowledge available on hand to make lasting change successful. The second element is looking at barriers to change. So is there anything preventing you from changing? And this third piece is this likelihood of relapse or setback. So what could happen in your life that would make a former behavior return? And so we will talk about all three, but we're going to start here today with readiness. And so this stages of change model, you might often see it as the trans-theoretical model back from the 70s, is something that we use in the public health world quite often to assess change and readiness to change in public health issues or health education. And so it allows you to better understand where you are on this readiness scale, which in turn helps you identify the level of motivation you have and what you would need to move forward to this next stage. We were in the process of figuring out how to add links to this. I do have this page of these stages of changes in a PDF form. If you are interested, I am happy to email it to you. I'll put my emails at the end, but I do have a PDF that kind of breaks this down even further, but I'm happy to share. But let's go through it a little bit together. And so this first stage right here at the way top is the pre-contemplation stage. And so in this stage, we really have no intention of changing our behavior. In fact, we could be in denial that change is needed, or we may not even know that a change or a problem exists. So you're kind of in this space where there's not any action being done. There's no thought of how can I improve better. You're kind of in this stage of, either you're unaware or just unwilling to move forward at that time. So this second stage is contemplation. So when you start to go into this stage, you start to become aware that there is something that you want to change, that there is some problem there that isn't working with your life, that there is something that you want to replace, or just try something new and set a goal for yourself. And so you start to consider the possibility of change, but there's really no commitment or action being done at this time. So this third stage is really where you start to see this change or this action taking place. You intend to take action, or you may start to make concrete steps to make that change. So this is where you start seeing people starting to set goals. They're starting to make plans. They're gathering the resources that they need, or anything else that you would need to prepare in advance. And so further on in this presentation, we'll go into more detail about exactly what that planning and goal setting requires. But this is where you'll see this take place, is this preparation stage. After you have everything you need, you start to move into this action phase. So this is where the stage of change where you start to actively modify your behavior and make those changes and implement those plans and goals that you have in place. The maintenance stage is where you begin to sustain this new change over time. And so it's where kind of this behavior change or this shift or this goal really become kind of implemented into your life. I will say though, change does not follow a direct path. So you could stay in this change forever. You could sustain this change for the rest of time, and it's just kind of included into your daily patterns and your routines, but that might not be the case. You could also kind of bounce back to that action phase where you need to kind of relook and re-strategize on how it works for you and put a different action into place. Or you can move ahead into this kind of relapse phase where you would have to kind of start all over again. And so this relapse phase of falling back to old patterns or behaviors is not a failure on your part. I just want to repeat that. Relapse is not a failure on your part. Setbacks will occur. And it is why this relapse step was even built into the model itself. It's recognizing that, things might not go completely perfect the first time around. Some of the behaviors or the habits or the goals that you want are in place have been habits of yours for years or many years. And that might take a couple of tries and trial and error to get it right. And so again, I'll go back to it, being kind to yourself, recognizing that behavior change is a complex field and that relapse may occur. So those are really the 6 big stages of change, kind of to identify where you are on this piece of the puzzle, can help you kind of understand what's next and what you need to do in that phase. Before I move on, I do just want to point out in this little swirly spiral in the middle of this model is called an upward spiral. And again, that's this opportunity to learn from each relapse as a way to grow and change for the next time. It's this kind of quality improvement piece where you can kind of always improve from what you've learned to then try again with a different focus. And so it's easy to become discouraged during this process and give up on these behavior change goals. Oftentimes the road might look long. It might sometimes seem easier to give up. However, there is a way to make this process easier for yourself, and that is to find your motivation. Once you're able to tap into this motivation of what's driving you, that behavior change oftentimes won't feel so hard. Okay. So we talked a little bit about behavior change. So now we're going to look at this motivation piece and what's driving our own personal motivations. So motivation is defined as the force or desire that drives us to act in service of a goal. It's what inspires us, it's what energizes us, influences our behavior towards a goal or a change that we want to make. So Eilert Fishbach, she is a professor in behavioral science at the University of Chicago. She gave a pretty great TED talk around motivation, and she had this quote that I found incredibly impactful. Um, she shares during this TED talk that motivation is not something that we can lose or possess, but it's ultimately a skill that must be learned. She goes on to say, and this is the quote on the screen, is that motivation is a mindset of wisdom and not strength. Um, you can think about this same mindset. There's another famous quote by Thomas Edison, if this resonates better, but that's, I never once failed at making a light bulb. I just found 99 ways not to make one. So a very similar mindset there that I really enjoy. You did not lose motivation for a goal or behavior because you were weak or not strong enough, or because you didn't have the willpower or the dedication to see it through. Motivation can really flourish with the right balance of skills that you learn over time, with this kind of trial and error, and through the wisdom gained each time you try again. This kind of wisdom mindset and this growth mentality is what will really get you through those relapses or setbacks each time. And by grounding ourselves in this mantra that motivation comes through wisdom, we can really see these setbacks as not as failures, but learning opportunities. And so I really enjoyed kind of framing it that way, because that was something prior to me really diving into kind of what motivates us I didn't think of. And so it's a really, I think, powerful tool to have in your back pocket. And so really, when we look at what is influencing this force or desire that drives us, it comes down to really two categories. And that is this kind of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And so intrinsic, which you'll see, is really driven by this sense of internal satisfaction. We care about the journey and the process of getting to the place, and not just the end destination or the end goal. So when people are intrinsically motivated, they're more likely to take on challenges and pursue their goals with enthusiasm and persistence. Intrinsic motivation on doing something for the sheer pleasure of doing it can really lead to a sense of mastery and accomplishment. It can boost confidence and self-esteem. For the reasons behind this motivation are often rooted in your own personal interest and lead you back to kind of your personal values and the reasons of why you do things in the first place. So some examples that I put on the slide that you can see are, pursuing something based on personal pleasure, engaging in a task for the satisfaction of completing it, striving to improve oneself for personal growth or development, learning something new just out of curiosity because you're interested, or deriving enjoyment from the process of achieving this goal. So you can kind of see the theme here, that the reason that you're motivated to continue on this plan is because it means a lot to you. You're getting something internally valuable out of doing this behavior change or getting to this goal. And so, it's a lot easier to sustain that motivation over time because it's being driven from something internal. The second type of motivation, which we'll see, is this extrinsic motivation, and it's really driven by external rewards, and sometimes this kind of fear of being punished. And so examples here, as you can see, are pursuing a task to gain a reward, an award, or some recognition, engaging in something to gain approval of others or based on the pressure of others, learning something simply to reach that goal. So you are investing time in studying because you need to do well on an exam, kind of thing. So these kind of, I'm just doing this to get to this point, or meeting a deadline to avoid punishment. Extrinsic motivation can be incredibly powerful for short-term boosts, such as increased productivity, enhanced performance, or a sense of accomplishment, but they can become quickly the only reason why you're doing this goal. And so when the external motivator stops, your work towards this behavior change might stop as well. However, I don't want you to kind of look and compare these two types of motivations and deem one bad or one good or one right or one wrong. It is really important to consider both types of motivation when designing strategies that will work for you, because both types of motivation are extremely powerful. The key to really long-term motivation and long-term success is really about finding that right balance. So, for example, intrinsic motivation can really help provide that long-term sustained motivation and a deeper satisfaction with the goal at hand. However, extrinsic motivation can be an incredibly great tool when you're trying to get that initial excitement or that initial push to get started. So, when designing your strategies and planning around the goals that you have and the smaller milestones that you'll make, considering both types of motivation and how they will work for you can help you get engaged, but then also stay engaged. All right. So, kind of putting all of these pieces together. So, for a quick recap, we looked at how we can determine that we are ready to make a change. We reviewed the different types of forces that drive us to be motivated, such as this external, extrinsic, and intrinsic motivation. Um, we are all in agreement, again, that we agree to be kind to each other. We agree to be curious. We agree to be patient on this journey of behavior change. And so now we'll put all of these pieces together and look at the steps we'll take to gain motivation to act, and then to sustain it over time. So the first step, so take it one step back. We identified where on this readiness scale that we are. We're ready to start moving forward with this behavior changing goal in mind. So this first step is really determining the goal that you have and finding your reason why. And so looking at what is driving you to choose this goal and how does it connect with your sense of personal values. Um, so as an example, is if a big change that I wanted to make was to be more physically active with the goal of increasing the amount of time I do cardio, I really want to spend time up front understanding why I want to do this for myself. Why does this resonate so deeply with me? Is this something that I will continue over time because it is such a big reason as to why I'm setting this goal in the first place? So to continue on with that example, for me, getting more physically active is a huge why because I would like to be a good example for my son, or I want to improve my cardiovascular health so that I'm around for him for a very long time. So oftentimes, if this reason why your goal or behavior change is so great or strong enough, it can really transform this goal from an aspiration or an intention that you have to really become a regular part of your life. And so tapping into this clear purpose and something that you can look forward to doing will really help you kind of ground you when that motivation may tend to dip or if the road gets hard and obstacles start to pop up. Um, Checking in with yourself over time to make sure that the why or the how that you're doing this goal for is still aligned with your personal values or it's still aligned with the big reason as you want to change. Having this kind of feedback will also boost motivation and make sure that you're always just doing this for something that is important to you. And then lastly, choosing a goal that you look forward to doing. So most oftentimes goals are abandoned because people don't enjoy the pursuit. It can get very draining if you're doing something that you dread. And it's very hard to make a habit stick if you don't enjoy doing it. And so making sure that you enjoy the journey just as much as the end point. So once we have our goals in mind, or this kind of big ultimate goal that we want that resonates well with us, we want to start looking at these goals. And setting them. So when you're setting goals, the best way to make them stick is by making your goals SMART. And so SMART being an anagram or an acronym, I apologize, for kind of well-defined, clear, and actionable goals. And so to quickly review, S stands for specific. So creating clear, defined, detailed goals. M is for measurable. So how can you tell you are reaching your goals? How will you monitor your process? Having something measurable will help you identify if you are meeting what you intend to meet? If it's too hard, do you need to scale back? If it's very easy, can you add a little bit more? So having this measure or this metric in place really helps you kind of put in an idea of how you're doing, if you're close to reaching your goal, or how that progress is going. A is for achievable. So starting where you are and being realistic with yourself. I'm not going to automatically say I'm going to run a 5K if my current cardio plan is taking a walk around the block. So you want to start with where you are. Starting small and building momentum over time will get you to that sustained change in a more self-esteem, confidence building way. R is for relevant. So this goes back to the why, right? Why are you choosing this goal? Is this goal related to your ultimate purpose of why you want to make these changes? And then timely. Making your goals finite with an endpoint in mind helps you stay on track, and it gives you kind of something to look forward to. So with this being said, large goals, even with our best intentions, can often become overwhelming and lead to procrastination or a decrease in motivation. And so looking at, my goal right now of wanting to do cardio, right? So I can make my goal a little bit smarter by saying something like, I want to incorporate 150 minutes of moderate cardio exercise into my week. So now I took it from this big lofty goal of I want to do more cardio into identifying exactly the amount of minutes that I would like to do it. I have this time frame of a week. I have an idea that I want to do a moderate to, cardio. And so it's really breaking it down and defining it a little bit farther. So now that we have our SMART goals, I'm going to encourage you to take it kind of one step farther and taking these larger goals that could be becoming overwhelming or can lead to procrastination and breaking them down into milestones. Each milestone achieved really can give a sense of accomplishment and can fuel your drive to keep going. And with every small win that you have, you're really reinforcing a sense of achievement, making it easier to stay focused, but also motivated long term. And so looking at how we can then, again, how do we take this one step farther, is my 150 minutes, right? So like I said, my cardio right now is a couple walks around the block. So even a week of 150 minutes might be too big of me as a starting point. So if we can break it down as smaller milestones, that might be easier for me to achieve in the beginning when my motivation is high and I have the goal to want to succeed. And so taking this down one break further, I could say I would like to use my Peloton bike for 30 minutes 2 times a week. So this smaller milestone ultimately leads to my SMART goal, but it's one small step that can help me kind of get into this routine to build up to that. And so I hope that makes sense of making it these small milestones. The smaller, the better. The more, more is great, and it kind of gives you something to look forward to. Taking it back a little bit to our friend Eilert Fishbach from the University of Chicago, she had shared this story called the middle problem. And so they did a study where they asked participants to share during Hanukkah when they lit the menorah. And so they found that as people were talking, a majority of people lit the candles on day 1, day 1, day 2, and then all the way, a lot more people lit them on kind of day 7, day 8. And so you're seeing a lot of people, doing this behavior during the beginning and the end of your, time frame, which leads to a couple of points. Motivation tends to be high at the start and end of behavior change or goal setting. And motivation tends to decline in the middle of this process. So if we know those two things to be true, what is something that we can do to kind of override this? And her recommendation is making this middle time frame short. So that's through smaller timelines, breaking things down into small, manageable micro goals. And so with that being said, that provides the sense of accomplishment a lot more frequently. And the more frequent that you feel you are accomplishing something, or you have those kind of rapid turnaround cycles, you can help drive that motivation up, and you can make that overall goal seem less daunting. Kind of one step at a time kind of approach. So we have our ultimate reasoning for doing something. We made this SMART goal that's overarching. We started to break them down into these micro milestones that can get us smaller steps to achieving it easier. And so this next step is really making a plan. Again, this is all in this preparation phase before we even get into the action part, is making this plan. And so this is really understanding and planning for barriers, your reasons for setback, who and what will help you, is really crucial for success. And so this really talks about those 2 and 3 elements for change. So those barriers and potential, likelihood of relapse. So starting with the barriers. And so the best practice is really, with this goal in mind, starting to list out, and I mean like physically list out, any and all possible scenarios, obstacles, tangible items that you have that could prevent you from accomplishing this goal or behavior change you have in mind. So that could be people in your life that could hinder progress. It could be scheduling conflicts that you have already, time constraints, lack of equipment, something that you'll need to buy. Is there a cost that's prohibitive? Childcare, transportation, so on and so forth. Making a list of all of these barriers that you could foresee popping up can give you kind of an idea of what might drive you back to old behaviors. In addition, trying to anticipate barriers that could get in your goal or go back. So is there still dessert hanging out in your fridge that you would need to get rid of if you're going to have a goal around, healthy eating? Did you schedule things to work during your lunch break so you don't have that free time to maybe go take a walk or, do something during that free lunch hour during your week? And so after making this list of, you want to try and plan how you can address each potential obstacle. If you don't have the time, can you look at where adjustments can be made? Don't have what you need to start the goal, start putting those things in place where you can go get the equipment or the tools that you need. So ultimately having this list and where to go from there can really help you get this roadmap to success and the paths and tools you would need to get there. So it's kind of like a cheat sheet that you already have on hand of how to address all these things that might pop up. And so the last thing of these barriers that I'll talk about is your ego, which could be the biggest barrier of all, and you may not even realize it. But when your ego gets involved in the process of behavior change, it can often become difficult to see past it. I said way in the beginning to be kind and be curious, and this is exactly why. By kind of taking that ego or that pride and stepping aside, you're giving yourself the opportunity to not view yourself as a failure. You're getting rid of that negative mindset, and you're really then entering into that wisdom or strength-based mindset where, it's not a sense of being weak. It's a sense of having this new learning opportunity. And so that's really one of the biggest barriers that sometimes people have for success or abandoning their changes or their goals, is because they just don't think that they can do it. So on to the more fun stuff. So the facilitators. So this is kind of what is happening in your life that can help you succeed. And so who is in your life that can assist in achieving your goal or hold you accountable? Who is your support system? Are there people in your life that will raise you up, that can join in on your goal or your behavior change with you, or hold you accountable with check-ins, or just to kind of see how you're doing? Finding those people is important, but communicating with them is even more important. You want to make sure you're communicating those goals and motivations you have with them, and share how you think that they can support you, in which way that will work for you. And then inventorying. So the second piece is inventorying the resources you have on hand that will make your goal easier to achieve. If you have things already, great. If you think they need a little bit of sprucing up, replace them. Just making sure you inventory what you have, what you need, and then what you definitely don't need. Next up is celebrating the progress. So taking time to celebrate this and take a pride in achieving those little milestones by doing something for yourself. Like I said, that intrinsic motivation can be extremely powerful for that short time turnaround of boosting motivation and getting you excited for this next step. And so taking pride and celebrating, and also harnessing what that feeling feels like to accomplish something, so that as your motivation starts to dip, you can kind of hold on to how great it felt when you did celebrate that progress, to help you move forward. And then this one might not seem like a facilitator, but it's seeking temporary discomfort, which can help you grow. So again, stepping out of your comfort zone, which behavior change is, can really demonstrate that you are capable of big things, you are capable of doing hard things, and you're capable of growth, and can really help you become a more resilient and motivated person, over time. So part two of this plan, so listing out again, recognizing and listing out those facilitators and those barriers, can help you kind of plan ahead. But then here are some additional strategies that you can immerse, to help make these changes part of your daily life. Um, and so schedule. So scheduling stuff in. So before we so before these changes or these goals really become something that we just do during the day or we do during the week, it has to be factored in as part of your schedule first, until you can kind of get used to this routine. So whether that's doing something physically active, prepping meals, reading a book, reducing screen time, whatever your goal is, you want to make sure that you can put in, um, the time that you need, so that you don't have that excuse as I don't have time to do these changes that I need, because it's already built in. I often think of, at our job at the health department, we're big components of making sure in our schedule you can schedule time that just says focus, that gives you the time to step away and get the work that you need done, and then not getting distracted because everyone knows that it's already in your schedule for that day. Um, Again, a little bit repetitive, but inventorying those resources you have, what you need and what you don't need to succeed. I can't, stress it enough. Being prepared makes that success and that motivation so much easier, because you will have everything you need right at the start before you jump into action. Um, Placing visual reminders around you to help kind of sustain that motivation over time. So whether that visual reminder be the goal itself, or that visual reminder be that ultimate reason why you're doing something, it could be a quote you love, but putting these visual reminders, whether it's a sticky note on your desk or at home on your steering wheel, pop-up reminders on your phone, changing your background on your computer. I know sometimes all the smartwatches will go off if they tell you to drink water or tell you to take a walk, get some steps in. So having those reminders around will really help you, just as kind of a mental reminder to do that goal. Bundle your goal. So what does that mean? So pairing the behavior you seek to do with something that you are A, doing already, and B, enjoy. So you will not maintain motivation if you dread doing the behavior or making that change. Pairing the activity with something that you genuinely like doing can increase that motivation. So as an example, if you enjoy listening to audiobooks or podcasts or music, pair that by going, get your steps in and go for a walk while listening to that thing, or do your meal prep at the time that you're listening to those things. If you're already doing an activity you like that you already build into your day for that enjoyment piece, adding that small milestone in can be a great way of making sure that it's being done. Next up is this accountability piece. And so sharing your goals with others creates this sense of responsibility on your part, because you are now talking about it out loud. You're telling people your goals and your motivations, and it kind of holds you responsible a little bit. And so finding someone to share your goal with, or having them join in with you. There are other things like just having a check-in. So even if they don't want to join in on the goal with you, just setting up a quick check-in to let people know how you are doing. Joining a group or a club for people that are also wanting to do those things. I think about in Norwalk, you have, there's a Norwalk running club for people that want to get into that goal together. There are journals, there's apps, there's a lot of things that can help hold you accountable to make sure that's being done. Next is shifting your mindset to find the positive. So we are, as humans, hardwired to think negatively. There's a whole science behind it. Back in the caveman days, you were wired to notice the bad, and it could be a whole other webinar, but we are hardwired to think more negatively. And so a simple shift in mindset can really help us shift from this kind of resistance, negative thinking to this more positive motivational thinking. So for example, going into something with the mindset of I have to, I need to, I should do this, already kind of makes you feel like you're being forced to do something, and nothing kind of ends a goal or a desire or motivation than being feel like you're being forced into doing something. And so switching that mindset over to I choose to do this because it means a lot to me. I choose to do this new thing because I find joy in it. I choose to do this because, XYZ. But having that little shift in mindset and focusing on the choices you have and the benefits that come from that can make a world of difference. Along that same along that same mindset is this idea of going into something as I can't do this. Again, coming from this place where you're already admitting defeat can kind of set you up for failure. And so it's looking at I can do this, or I will keep trying, or I have the confidence to keep trying, can really help with that attitude of perseverance, of positivity, of self-esteem, but also kindness and understanding that it will take time. And lastly, I know I had brought this up, but really harnessing that feeling of accomplishment. Lastly, playing to your own strengths. And so if you are planning something that is inherently harder for you to do, it's possible. If you set your mind to it, it's possible. But playing to your strengths, and having this strength based focus will help make that behavior easier in the long run. So for example, with my physical activity goal, I have very poor upper body strength. So my goal isn't going to be to do chin-ups or push-ups. That will just kind of sink me into a pit of, I can't do this. And so playing to the strengths, what do I already like to do in this kind of exercise realm? And how can I start from there and build up over time? So looking at your strengths. So I threw a lot at you, but in summary, it kind of boils down to three things. And so looking at this kind of behavior change is possible, but takes time. Give yourself the time, the patience, the curiosity to help understand really why you are seeking this behavior. Identifying what motivates you and make your goals work for you. Taking the time to understand what is driving your motivation, and make your goals smart, make your micro goals even smarter, to give you that stepping stone that you need to get to the end result. And then plan ahead and meet your goals prepared. So entering your goals with confidence and prepared to meet anything that lies ahead will give you the skills and the tools you need to face anything head on. Gathering your support team, checking in with yourself, celebrating the small things. All of these are ways that you can boost your motivation in short-term kind of feedback loops, but then also sustain that motivation over time. I did not add this in here, but constantly check in, constantly evaluating how you're doing, if this is something that's working for you, is it enjoyable, and kind of tailor it from there. Just because you made a goal does not mean you're setting it in stone. It's a constant process. If you're looking to putting this in to your life long term, you want it to work for you. So constantly just evaluating, does this really mean as much as to me as it did a month ago? Is it working for me? Can I tweak it a little bit? But it's under this same kind of process. It's just a matter of kind of stepping in, pressing pause, reevaluating, and going from there. And so wanting to learn more, I did kind of pick out a couple of additional books if you are interested in learning more about this topic. Tiny Habits is written by BJ Fogg, who goes into like the tiniest of tiny habits. Like I think he started out doing like 2 push-ups after he brushed his teeth in the morning and night and built that into, I think it was like a 25 or 30 pound weight loss. And so he talks a lot about the tiniest of tiny habits and how that can really start to like snowball into these bigger changes. Influencer is from a team of behavioral health science that look about how if you would like to make a difference, how you can make those changes and help empower others to do the same. I personally read those 2 books and I really enjoy them. And then the library was kind enough to also choose 2 books. And so this one Awaken Your Inner Self. It's a guide to help illuminate kind of this path of growth and self-discovery. They share exercises, reflections, and kind of is just like a nice guide to kind of put this into practice. And then the self-sabotage looks at questions of why do we self-sabotage and how do we stop it? And again, gives some kind of tools and assessments and stories on how can you get past this self-sabotage mentality. Some references. This is my email. I do have a guide on creating SMART goals and listing out barriers. I do have the PDF around that stages of change. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the upload piece to work on this webinar, but I'm happy if you write my email down, I'm happy to send over anything that you would like. And then I do just want to end by sharing next week. So next week we are turning it over to Vicki to talk really about overcoming loneliness and this piece about the importance of social connectedness on your health and how isolation really has a huge impact on both mental health, but also physical health. It's a really great topic. And so that will be next Wednesday at 12. Let's see.